cold wind from the mountain.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker will be Dr. Brian McMahan. Before I ask Brian to speak, I would like to give a big round of applause to the man who sculptured this, drum player Jim Connolly. He made a tremendous job. And also to the people with whose contributions that we could, again, put this up here tonight. People contributed very generously to this, to the fund for this bus, and I would like to thank all those people, most of whom are here tonight. So now I'll hand you over to Dr. Brian McMahan, who taught Sean for a while at school and was very close to him.
You saw me jostling there with John B. Keane to know which of us would go last. That's a very important thing to have. You know, if he comes after you, he has the upper hand. He has a whole lot to talk about age before steam or snail before steam, but that's what he's from. Well, we're here on a very happy occasion. It's a time for smiles and laughter, because Sean was the essence of it. And I think if you want to sum him up in one sentence, you say, he dared to be himself. He did. I think that's important. He dared to be himself. I knew him since he was as big of a bee's knee. And he was that size. All the McCarthys, they're here tonight, had merry, mutinous eyes. I never fell out with him, but I had an odd jostle with him. I remember in Mary B's one night of a races when Sean was hopping the ball for me, and a big crowd there, he looked at me and he said, here's in the man that often belted me at school. And that was untrue, I never touched him. But he put it on as a kind of an act, you know, to get the better of me. And I looked at him and I said, McCarthy, if I had you back, I'd crucify you. And he said, and what's more, I said, I'd teach you manners to a venerable schoolmaster. And he looked at me and he said, it's hard to get the better of that fella. So we had good times together, lovely times together. We miss him, we miss his voice, we miss his going with his message back to town. We miss everything about him, and his deep chuckle. He chuckled away in his throat at everything, he laughed at the world. I'll tell you a story about him which reveals him. He told it to me one time, I don't know if I told it before. He found himself in the Far East fighting a war he knew nothing about, like the good soldier Swite. And he found himself out in Korea or North, somewhere like that, and he kept his head down like a sensible man because he wanted to come home to Finuge. And he said on the way home, he called in at Port Said or Cairo or somewhere like that, and he went and had a few gargles to relieve the tension of the battle. And he says he went up a long alleyway, not knowing where he was, and he saw an open door with a light and a whole lot of people in white sheets all around the walls, and they were all singing songs. And in the middle of the floor there was a big sofa covered with a white sheet. And when his turn came, Sean sat down and gave him the rocks a bone. Oh, rise up, lovely sweetie, and give your horse some hay. And give him one good feed of oats before you go away. Don't give him soft white turnips that grow on yonder lawn, or else he won't be able to plough the rocks a bone. And at this point, a paddy wagon appeared at the door. The military policeman landed and hauled him out. And they said, McCarthy, do you know what that is? He said, no, it's a ballad station. That's a wake. That's a corpse under the thing. Come away before it gets killed. We listened every Sunday morning to him on the miscellany. He was great. He had a great story about patches. He invented some uncle of his up on the mountain. You know, he invented a lot of these stories. Are you there? And he said his suit was all patches. There was nothing of the original fabric left. And suddenly he got a letter from America, from his lovely cousins, elegant cousins, that they were coming along. And the neighbors got in and they brought him, took the suit off him and brought him into town and dressed him up in a new suit. And they took him down to Shannon Airport to welcome the people from America and told him to be on his very best behaviour. And when they came on, to his astonishment, he found that they all had patches sewn onto their trousers. And he said, what did I take off my patches for? Well, these people are full of patches. So he went back and he was happy ever after. He was lovely company out here, lovely company, God be good to him. His songs won't be forgotten for a long, long time. There was one thing that amazed me. We thought, I'm close to the bone in this one, we thought that when Carol came here, that she'd never be able for the turbulence and the mischief and the storytelling and the songsters and the wildness that was around her here. But I must say to her eternal credit, she passed us out. Nothing, but she encouraged him all the way. And the fact that we are here today is in great measure due to Sean McCarthy. I found myself the night of an All-Ireland final inside in a pub in Listowel in a very distinguished company. Two distinguished clerics in mufti. And I found the two McCarthys, one at each side of me, hopping the ball for each other as to which was the cleverer going to school. Mick and Sean. And the talk went very high. And one of the priests, anyway, took the pipe out of his mouth. He watched this thing very carefully. And out of the darkness came another voice and said, I was the best of them, Master McMahon, wasn't I? Keane had landed. So I had three McCarthys. So I don't know how I got out of it, but I got out of it anyway. And believe it or not, one of the men who enjoyed that very much after became the most distinguished churchman in Ireland, when I told them they nearly dropped, he was Cardinal Thomas O'Fee. A great man altogether. I've nothing more to add. It's a lovely occasion indeed, a happy occasion. We always remember Sean with a smile, and I'll finally thank Alice for coming to us. She's a great person. She writes about the ordinary people of Ireland like ourselves. And I'd finish with a quotation. It goes like this. We are like soldiers all, marching along life's dusty way. If any man can play the pipes, for God's sake, let him play. Sean played the pipes. He made songs. Everywhere I go, people call me and they say, how's Sean McCarthy? How is he now? Do you remember him at all? Of course we remember him. I know a house in Dublin. Whenever he was on the radio, they knocked at the walls to tell each other he said that he was there. God be good to his happy, merry soul, and may his songs live forever. So complimented Jim Connolly on his very fine work, but also I must thank Jim Beasley, Bill Welsh, Toddy Buckley and their helpers for mounting the bust so well here and putting it in such a fine setting. I think they did a very fine job and they're out there tonight. And also, I know there are about 100 McCarthys here, so I would like to welcome all Sean's brothers and nephews and nieces and all here. You're very welcome here tonight, and all his relatives. So now I hand you over to John B. Keane. Thank you, gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a beautiful evening.
Yes, thanks be to God.
Before I spoke there a while ago, myself and Brian were arguing as to who should go first or second, myself or himself. But then I reminded him and he agreed of an old maritime law, which he used to quote himself when he was teaching us. That is, sail always precedes steam. Yes. So for that reason, he spoke first. But this is truly a wonderful occasion, and my memories of Sean are very fond ones. And I think that this is an idyllic occasion as well as a historical one, because it means that eventually myself and Brian will be busted as well. I don't know whether we'll be for sitting together or apart. I honestly don't know, but we get on well. I think it might be as well if we were put together. But I always remember Sean and myself used to talk about muses when we were in our cups. And I don't know if any of you have ever seen the muses that are supposed to reside below under the bridge Finuge Bridge. But Sean told me one time anyway that, he said, I was passing in Monday Finuge, he said, and I looked down. And I saw my muse below me in the water smiling. And I smiled back at her. I came down, then he says, to Tierney's, and I got blotto. And when I came back, he said, I looked for her. And all I saw was a black face grinning up at me. And he always said that was one of the reasons, apart from Carol's beauty and kindness and generosity and understanding, that he went off the booze for good. There are many stories associated with Sean, but I think that the greatest of them is a one which is often quite wrongly attributed to Paddy Drury, but it isn't, it belongs to Sean. And this can be confirmed by such eminent authorities as Jerome Murphy of Listowel, among others. Now, Sean was one time walking with a mehel of men in the bog, and when the day was ended, they went to the house of the turf cutter for their dinner. They sat down, they were well fed with all the best produce of the time, which was bacon and cabbage, and spuds, flowery, I need not mention. And when they were finished with the meal anyway, a huge currant loaf was produced. Those old-fashioned currant loaves, they were nearly the size of a cat whip. And the lady of the house started to cut, and she cut off the crust, and she put the crust in front of Sean. But she gave all the other older fellas at the table, Sean was only 14 at the time, she gave all the other older fellas big cuts of bread. And Sean looked at his crust, and he put it down like that, and he snapped up a big slice of bread. What are you doing? She said to him. He said, ma'am, I have the ace, I'm robbing. But there are many, many stories which apply to Sean, but I will always personally remember him for his warmth, and for his beautiful singing, and for his relationship with ordinary people. And I think it's a great achievement here this evening that we are at last beginning to honour our own. And Sean was one of our own, and always will be. And I think that the warmth in his heart is reflected here this evening by the attention which you have paid to our speakers here this evening, the respectful attention which you have shown us. And now before I close, I would like to quote a poem in memory of Sean and for Carol. It's Thomas More's poem, At the Mid-Hour of Night. So if you listen for a minute. At the mid-hour of night, when stars are weeping, I fly to the lone vale we loved, when light shone warm in thine eye. And I think oft that if spirits can steal from the regions of air, to revisit past scenes of delight, you will come to me there, and tell me how love is remembered even in the sky. Then I'll sing the wild song it once was such pleasure to hear, when our voices commingling, breathed like one in the ear. And as echo far off through the veil, my sad orison rolls, I'll think, O my love, 'twas thy voice from the kingdom of souls, faintly answering still the notes we once held so dear. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, the cold wind from the mountain